one of the things that I'm kind of pulling out of this is that we're at, and you and I were talking about this before we started, we're at kind of a second level in my mind of kind of using artificial intelligence here. And
Mhm.
this is not anything technical, but I'm just kind of putting, if I'm going into ChatGPT and I'm saying, "Hey, help me, suss out this issue or something," that's kind of like one level of messing with AI, and I'm really dumbing this down. But then a second level here, and I think this is the dream of a lot of attorneys, is to say, okay, I know there's a tool out there. There's some way that I can have this, that I can point artificial intelligence, this big mass that is this concept of artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
at my own data or at some other data and get information out of it. What is that? What is the tool? What are we physically doing there, in kind of using artificial intelligence to, let's say, look at legislation and maybe do some research on legislation?
I love that question, and I'm probably gonna go in, like, 16 different directions because I just wanna
Love
talk
it.
about it from every single angle. But even just thinking about what is generative AI in particular,
Mhm.
um, these platforms are these mathematical models that are just trained on huge swaths of data. They're trained really foundationally to just predict the next token, and we're gonna call this thing that they're predicting a token.
Okay.
But it's really just like a sub piece of a word or some part of a word that allows the model to understand and be able to model things. So we have this model that is trained on huge amounts of data for really long periods of time. It has seen so much text. It has extracted the semantic meanings of words and sentences and concepts. And then when it's done that, now it has an understanding of generally the English language or things about the English language. So we were just talking about leases,
Mhm.
and because we're on this particular podcast, we understand that we're talking probably about something relating to like housing, right? If
Mhm.
this was a car podcast, we might be talking about car leases. And so, because of the amount of information these LLMs had, these AI models have been trained on, um, the AI would be able to understand. Like if it was trying to make a summary right now that the leases that we're talking about are probably associated with law leases, as opposed to if it was listening or transcribing the same conversation on the Car-urist, I don't know, podcast that we would be talking about cars.
We
You
need to
know,
create the Carrierist podcast now. Now we gotta go do that.
but those things, like that kind of training is really what's powering the behavior of these LLMs. And so, one thing that we have really come to love with their developments of AI is the idea of what we like to call a context length, right? This is how much information the model is able to quote unquote think about or compute upon at the same time. So, that is the like such an incredible piece of progress in AI because I don't know if you remember back in the day, right, where we could put in just like maybe a couple sentences and it could, complete that sentence maybe. Now we're able to put in like even like a book, a whole book, and then ask questions about that book. We're able to put in a set of leases and a book, and then it's able to think about all the things in the book alongside all the things of the leases. And maybe you ask a question about the leases and it references some information in the book. And so, with that, just this augmented context length and being able to compute over all of those things at the same exact time, we have a really powerful way of putting together foundational knowledge, like things that would be in a book, with things that we might be working with every day, and then use those things at the same exact time.
So, I guess I've got 2 questions there. One, and I'm gonna show how uninformed I am with both of these questions. One is, where are we putting these things? Um,
Ah, such a good question.
like where
It
where where am I putting these things? And 2, um, is that training? Is that training the model, or is that, like, extra on top of something? Like, it is, or does the information have to kind of go into the model in order to be considered, like, training of it? And does
okay,
that
I
matter?
love I
15
love
different questions. I'm gonna hit you with 11 questions at the same time. It's a really good interviewing tactic right there.
I love both of those questions. So in my current role, a lot of what we also do is training. And so we use these platforms that help people to understand the breakdown of what something like like a ChatGPT type platform, or what these platforms actually like, how they're sort of put together. And so what we always see in our schematic of, or our block diagrams of how these systems work together is this block that's always called like LLM or AI model. And when I say LLM, I mean large language model. This is the thing
Mhm.
that powers like ChatGPT, OpenAI, large language, because it's really large and it's a model of language. So LLM, large language model. But what happens is we can see sort of the data moving to a point where it gets to the LLM, and then we get a response back. So the question, I think your first question is, what's that magic right there?
Mhm.
And so usually what that magic is, if you're using a particular provider, is you're sending data up to that provider. So you're sending information to OpenAI, you're sending it to Anthropic, you're sending it to Grok, whatever have you. You're sending this information to them. They're putting it through their LLM or their AI system, and they're sending it back to you. And so even in thinking about that, we know that it's really important that we don't upload things that we don't want to be just elsewhere. If there's
Yeah.
things that have privacy associated with them or laws associated to how you can kind of handle them, then we're not putting those in those systems unless we have
Mhm.
existing agreements. But yeah, it's going elsewhere.